Mm, 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 mm. Welcome, creatives, community, and kind folks to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Welcome to the Seat of the Pants Theater. I decided this week that we would talk about what we could borrow, steal, use for our tabletop role playing games from the series House of the Dragon. And Game of Thrones and such. And today, it being Third Pillar Thursday or Third Pillar of Exploration Thursday, I thought we would talk about, you know, where um, Dead Man talks, where I brought up the Where the Wild Things room. Yeah, Dead Man says Where the Wild Things Are, story by Morris Sendak, 1963. It works for today. Absolutely positive. Thank you very much, by the way, for popping that in the first comment. I'm going to leave this up here for a while because I think as your self-appointed third pillarist in the tabletop RPG community, it kind of fits that if you're going to bother having dragons, and dragons is just uh, it's a placeholder for monsters and creatures and adversaries that are like bestial and giant sized, maybe, in your game world, and introducing them into what we would consider fantasy society. That, of course, those things come from somewhere else. The classic trope being that there are villages and cities and city states that are relatively safe, but on the outskirts of society, there are dangerous things. And in House of the Dragon, of course, those dangerous things are dragons that they've bonded with. But there's a lot of story to be told to for players to go out to where the dangerous things are to bring them back. And that this is a classic fetch quest type of story where the players must leave safety, go out into the dangerous world, and bring back an egg or a youngling of some kind of animal. It's literally written into Dungeons and Dragons from its very inception, when we start talking about like raising owlbear eggs and finding a Pegasus, or finding an egg to a rock, ROC, big giant falcon eagle looking thing. There's a lot of animals, even basilisks and more, that within their descriptions they talk about how even other giant races or goblinoid races will raise them as their pets, and there's even a possibility of player characters being able to do the same thing. While there may not be very many rules for doing so, if you want to give this as a instead of magic items or gold, maybe they might be able to raise or train a little small monstrous creature until it grows into the level appropriateness and dangerousness that the player characters have acquired at that time. And yeah, just going out into the wild and finding it. And the what I love about this idea is the added complication that, along with going through dangerous territory, whether they have to go up into a dense jungle to eventually scale a big volcanic mountain, or the player characters have to delve into a deep swamp, is the fact that the MacGuffin itself is the creature that they may be trying to get back. So it could be gathering eggs, or leading a somehow using something like a concoction, or even bits of food, or magic or whatever, to lead this creature back to civilization and be able to train it or domesticate it or shelter it or whatever. That they have to double their length of travel, get there and then get back, and protect the thing that they want to get there in the first place. I once ran it was kind of an introductory adventure where the player characters were hired. There was going to be a marriage, and in a classic sense, there was going to be a dowry, and the king or baron or whatever wanted to hire the player characters to find a small pony. Essentially, it was going to be like a small griffin or a pegasus or something like that. And the player characters had to leave from one place, get to where it is, grab it, and bring it back. And they would be rewarded handsomely and such. And I listen. I get there. There is a little bit of problematic element to it. Some people would feel that snatching an animal from its natural habitat and capturing it and bringing it back might be problematic in and of itself. But the opposite would be a, a adversarial adventure group is going to do the thing, and the player characters may need to stop them from doing such a thing as well. Also, it doesn't necessarily need to be adversarial with the PC slaughtering the mother and bringing back the eggs or something. It could be something that is foretold. It could be a natural. This may be a natural societal bonding between a wild beast and humanity, much like our relationship with dogs and wolves today. That it's not about going and killing the mother, it's about going out to find out what this wild creature is. And the simple act, hey, kitty, the simple act of getting out to that wild space is tells the creature that you're worthy of its attention, which is also a possibility. Mike says this was baked into older versions of D&D where spells required monster parts as components. Yeah, a lot of death and destruction in that part, but yes, it did. Yeah, vampire dust, beholder eyes, etc. This would send PCs into the worst conditions so their wizard could do their job. In essence, working so they could work. Exactly. And yes, there was a lot of like, hey, you need the hairs off the back of a ogre or something like that, right? It was like you said, the eye of Newt. Um but and there were a lot of other things like that were really bizarre. And I know what was the monster manual is a good one, although that more or less dealt with eating a lot of those wild monsters, which is kind of crazy to do, but people would do it anyway. But yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Thomas Anderson says, "Hey, I just realized that role-playing game players are going to be some of the most successful preppers, yeah, due to their ability to use their imagination to role-play things." Yeah, imagination is a huge part of like, you know what, you got to survive out here some kind of way. How are we going to do this? And so I actually even armchair prepping, that which kind of doesn't count. I've always thought like, one of the most important things might be to get books on prepping in the first place. Like if the society goes down, we're going to need some books on survival. Oh man. Mike says, dude, I'm totally having that Griffin egg hatch en route to the king. Yeah. And this baby will bond with the first PC they see. I was just thinking about that. Like, okay, PCs have to go get Griffin egg, distract Griffin mom, grab Griffin egg, come back home, and halfway along, egg hatches and goes, mommy. And the bard's like, don't blame me, I didn't do it. And the king is like, no, it belongs to us. And the griffin's like, mommy, to the first plea, never leaving their side. Yep, Mike's like, going to where the wild creature is. The cat enters the frame. Yeah, I've got I sometimes I put the standees behind me, sometimes I don't. They aren't normally here, so I have to move them from my man cave to go behind me, and I get lazy sometimes, and then I got to put them back, and the cats, they're a little bit weirded out by them. So sometimes if Sophie starts to like have a little bit of a fit, I stop. Thomas Thomas Anderson says, imagine you go to build a homestead. Okay, yeah, okay. Imagine if you go to build a homestead bug out hiding place in the mountains and install ways to generate footsteps in the leaves or whispering in the woods to deter people from finding your place. Uh, I mean, that would be a real thing, right? Like to scare people off, putting animal scat around and having noises that are made to scare people away. Actual recordings of wildlife, like dangerous wildlife. Why the hell wouldn't you do that? Mike says, if I play wizards or anyone trained in alchemy, I still collect monster parts. I do too. I Potions of giant strength require giant toenails after all. Yeah, yeah. I still, I don't know. There's no real rules for that, but I think if players are going to bother to go out of their way to do it, I'm like, yeah, you've got access to that spell or whatever. Like whatever the closest, like you said, potions of giant strength. If you gather those you know uh I don't know, hill giant toenails or something like that. Like I think like if you're gonna bother to do the thing, you should be rewarded with the thing. And honestly, it's not really that much different than finding treasure in the cave, right? You defeat the monster, find treasure in the cave, the treasure becomes themselves, and you've actually worked for it. So I actually feel like you deserve to get something for it if you're going to bother doing it. Thomas TA says using the same psychology, you might encounter uh, creep out players on possible people who might find your hidden location. Exactly, and what a great way to introduce uh, the opposing adventuring party, right? Like you don't and adventuring parties don't have to be class levels. They could be a bunch of like random ass monsters that are sentient going out to find a thing. It also could be that it the players may need to protect the monster instead of being an enemy of the monster. Like, what if, for example, there's something poisonous or some kind of monster hasn't migrated when all the other ones have already migrated, or there like again there are hunters out there trying to eliminate the very thing that is out there. So maybe the monster needs protection. Maybe the Griffin, Pegasus. I'm trying to think of something other than dragons, right? But the Griffin, Pegasus, the hippogriffs, giant eagles and rocks or whatever. There might be some kind of danger. It could be a weather event. They could have missed the opening for the migration. It could be something magical happening that is dangerous to them or even dangerous to their young. And again, of course, the a rival faction or government could be out there to try to shut them down. And in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, uh, I'd be hard pressed not to think that there wouldn't be factions out there to try to kill the dragons off. Of course, the moment the royal families found out that there were people to try to do that, they would be murder killed themselves. But yeah, there may be a faction out there that just doesn't want people having pet um, wyverns and pterodactyls as a thing and going out there to stop them. So this might be, players trying to move the creatures into a safe place. Forest fires and earthquakes and mudslides and things, famine and disease also are great motivators to get the PCs to like encourage the monsters to move from the east to the west or into a protected land or something like that. Yep, yep. Thomas Anderson says, water breathing potions require the most mundane material that can harm you. The puffer fish, as we talked about before. Yeah, the aquatic people taking a puffer fish and like puff puff pass. Yeah, kind of cool though. Although for a, it might be extremely poisonous for us, but it actually would be kind of cool to have to take one of the most poisonous mundane creatures and turn it into a potion of water breathing. Although the the thought going to my head was it's both a hallucinogenic and a water breathing fish that you just suck on the fish's mouth, and the puffer fish just goes like it sinks in as your lungs fill up. You can just breathe. It says there's a type of window that peeks out from between the shingles of a roof from the attic that I immediately was figuring out how I could make them blink using flexible stuff and such. That's to mess with people. Blinking windows. Although I don't know that I suppose if players are able to remove monstrous creatures from a dangerous location into say a protected habitat and then figure out a way to keep the protected habitat protected, would be kind of cool as well. Mike says I've run one shot where all the players were goblins defending their warren against PCs. Yeah, defending one's bug out hideout is something I've done in tabletop. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Mm-mm-mm. Thing about pufferfish in Minecraft is you take damage from them like walking into a thorn bush, but with lasting poison damage too. So they present an actual danger. You know, the traveling into unknown regions, dangerous places, and coming back home with something isn't unknown in Dungeons and Dragons, but a lot of times we really don't have a lot of the mechanisms to describe, like going through dense jungles and rainforests and swamps, or going through the I'm going to say it, accursed desert to get to a place to find the thing. But um, the reward thereof might a be learning to transverse those regions, and b the confronting or befriending or learning how to use those wild monsters that are out there, like Dead Man brought up in the very um, beginning of the chat, is that y- the lesson learned getting from A to B might change the perspective of the PCs before they get from B back to A. Um, I was going to say a cursed desert. Yeah, you know it. Oh, what? Because I'm in Ohio. Drink. Although actually, my drink is almond milk. Um, Sponsor me, you sons of bitches. But anyway, yeah, I was going to say an accursed desert, and the thing is that on um the adventure might be a red herring. So what I mean by red herring is uh PCs are low level. They're hired to go find the Pegasus and bring it back for the dowry, right? And along the way, the player characters themselves might even be thinking like, why do we want to bring it back for somebody else? Like, and what are we going to do if we find the mom? Like, are we going to kill that? And then along the way, by the time they get there, the players may have already changed their mind about what they want to do, which might be the point in the first place, right? Like going out and killing owl bears and taking the little babies might not be that might be what they've been hired to do, but that might not be the air quotes proper thing to do. And instead they might want to protect the owl bear and its cubs or owlings, or are they cubs, or there's some combination of owl and cub. But whatever the case, but are they born in eggs? Or are they mammalian in the sense, I don't know. I don't know. For an artificial creature, I don't know how it would be. But anyway, the so the player characters might end up defending the thing instead of attacking the thing and then bringing it back. And also out in those places of wildlife and such, having natural rewards out there, finding fruits and veggies, and those wild animals might be surviving on those very things. And of course, once you get out there, those environments might be extremely dangerous. We've seen plenty of stories where an innocent wild animal is being attacked with like bear traps, and there's hunters out there who are always always got like the one toothless hunter that's, and the other another one's got one eye. There's a third one that's brutal. One's got like half their teeth missing and all. You know what I mean? God, listen, they deserve to get throat punched, right? And the PCs might be on the side of the wild animal, and the wild animal might be looking like, okay, I see you. I see you. Yeah, we're friends now. Um, I'm looking at you, Dances with Wolves, and other stories similar to it. Sorry. Oh wow, Cottonmouth. Mm-mm-mm. Um, Thomas Anderson says, imagine traveling to a hidden bug out location with all those spooky effects to scare off people, all to join in a group. Yep, to play a haunted, wild role playing game once you get there. Of say D&D. Yeah. Talk about pre-game prep for the players to really set the mood for the game. Now, I think while it does seem a little bit off topic, I do like the idea of like a heist. Heist games tend to have a lot of preparation, right? Um, Players need to break into a place. In high tech heists, I know there's Keys to the Golden Vault is out now, but in a lot of heists, you have to prep for guards and traps and how to get in and how to get out and unlocking things and sneaking around. But um, yeah, but it could be the players need to prep a, a lot. Like, okay, if PCs need to go up into the higher elevations of a go through a dense jungle, go up on to climb the volcano, find the monstrous baby and bring it back. It's like, well, how do they do that? What are the tools they're going to need? Are they going to have a cage? Do they have to create or find some kind of magical enchanted item that will charm the creature? What if to do it they need to create some kind of concoction to put it to sleep temporarily for them to bring it back? And who gets to carry the thing? Like, what if it's it would be like, I don't know, finding a Tarask egg if Tarasks lay eggs or something. Maybe the Tarask egg is like 3 tons because it's small. So how the heck do they bring it back? Mm-mm-mm. Mike Marin says owlbears lay eggs as they are often plot MacGuffins. Makes perfect sense to me. They become chicks or cubs. They don't produce milk, but do eat meat or eat even at a young age. I did not know that about a fictional monster, but I know there is a listen dungeon dungeon magazine and dragon magazine was the one I grew up with, and I know there was a dungeon magazine. They used to always produce the ecology series, and I know it's in there, but I just don't know it off the top of my head. But yeah, and who's you don't even have to follow that. You could make up whatever the hell you want, right? So like someone like um the only person to challenge you would be someone who is in a well actually, and you can just tell them, yeah, but in my game world, that's not how it works. TA says even better if an old weathered treasure map. Treasure map like map is what the players receive to find their way to the game location. Of course. Yeah, it runs with Owlbear, 9 p.m. on CBS. I love it. But um, so another thing for these hey Wayne, um another thing about these wild arcane monsters that society is going to have is that they're going to have people trained probably to go to these wild locations. And the difference between our real world, the I'm going to call it mundane, even though most of these places are pretty horrific. Going down into the deep sea, going up into high elevations, going through swamps and um, accursed deserts, and all like. There's something in fantasy that it's not. It can't just be dangerous. It's got to have like there's another level to the danger. I'm looking at the movie, the James Cameron Avatar Blue Navi people, where it's not just high elevations. I mean, these are like floating mountains. It's not just deep seas. These are semi-sentient whale-like creatures, right? And in that sense, when the player characters who gain their capabilities, they've progressed far above first level, and now you start having like floating islands and volcanoes that are spewing necrotic lava or something, or dense jungles that are alive, all this kind of thing. Yeah. M squared's like, hell, owlbears can't fly. Well, in my game, they can. Roll initiative. Yeah, hell's yes. So and that could be a thing, right? Maybe the owlbears do fly over there. They just no longer can because they've been domesticated or something, or they've adapted themselves. And we've always had that excuse where damn near half the monsters in the original monsters manual was like, it was a wizard's experiment. Yeah, that's it. I'm not sure about that, Mike. Says, wait, isn't it part of Waterdeep culture that they raise owl bears for meat and milk? I don't know. I don't know. I that I'm not sure of. I don't know if you'd want to milk a owl bear, but ooh, but hell yeah. Wayne says not sure what the what you're all talking about yet, but I'm going with a bipedal animal world where the monsters are things that look like us, Planet of the Apes like. We're talking about stealing from House of the Dragon. And so to summarize again, in House of the Dragon, regular human, fragile, um, arrogant, conceited, fragile humanity has control of city destroying monsters, and the idea of bringing that into our role playing games. And here on Third Pillar Thursday, we're talking about not just the monsters themselves, because we talked about it Monday and yesterday, but today we're talking about the wild places where those things exist. So, for example, there is in Game of Thrones, there's a Dragonstone, which is a place for, hey, McCallum, what's going on there? In Dragonstone, it's the place where the big giant stone place where the dragons can rest and relax. Maybe I'm not sure if it's comfortable for them, but I'm assuming it is. And it could be that the players need to go to a place like the Avatar movies, the big blue 10-foot blue people movies, where the player characters need to go to a place to bond with one of the monsters up there. I'm going with wyverns for right now, and have to ride them. The banshees, they were called, I think, in the movie, and have to go up there to wrestle them down in order to bond with them, and then bond with them for life or whatever. You don't need to know much about it. Whether the books exist, you don't have to watch the TV show. But in House of the Dragon, the the royal family of the Targaryens became royal simply because they had dragons. And as young people, literal dragon eggs were placed into the cradles of children, so that when and or if the eggs hatched, the young children would bond with those dragons. And because of the fall of Volantis, they technically lost a lot of the knowledge on how to um, accurately and efficiently bond with the dragons. They had this lost culture kind of thing where the dragons are more or less placated, not necessarily domesticated, if that makes sense. So the dragons are still pretty wild. And I was saying, well, why can't we use that for fantasy? So, um, where the dragons hang out could be a thing for player characters. And what I love about in House of the Dragon, or at least in the book, a little bit of House of the Dragon, and in the books Blood and Fire, the dragons have specific names and descriptions and capabilities. Some are tall, some are lean, some are kind of mutated, or red and oranges and greens and purples and golds. And they also have different capabilities as well. And maybe the player characters need to, exploration has a lot to do with discovery. And the players may discover that particular markings, behaviors, heck, some of the sounds they make, the scat they leave behind, the villagers that live in the area that can give them information about their behavior and their migratory travels, their favorite foods, uh, the their territorial behavior, their mating behavior, um, their threat behavior when they try to protect their territory, right? They might act threatening, but they really don't want to attack the PCs. They just want to keep them out of their territory. A lot of the wild animals would do that, where they really don't want to fight, but what they're trying to do is scare you away from their food source, um, or their territory, or their young. And learning all of those things as the player characters navigate the world to get to where they need to go, may they may earn the the thing that they're trying to get by gathering those bits and pieces of knowledge before they get there. That's a very OSR, old school kind of thinking, because you had to learn as much information as you wanted, because you wanted to know, are you going to fight trolls or hydras, or basilisks, or chimeras or something. You needed to know it, because if you didn't, you probably did. um Owlbear is brought to you by Pfizer. That's crazy. So, um the other part about exploration may be that the player characters may find out that the animal isn't as bestial or dangerous, or as they think. Maybe the animal comes to the rescue. And what a perfect excuse to have a Deus Ex Machina, where the players are maybe trying to scale a sheer cliffside, and they're about to fall, and maybe those flying wyverns or pterodactyls or something come by the PCs and save their lives or something, or lead them into crevices where they think there's no safe place to be. But the animals, they're pretty smart. They lead them into a place where they can find some refuge and whatnot. Also, the if we want to, instead of like protecting the monsters, there is a particular reason why the monsters are uh, attacking the population. And especially if the players are, if you want to bring this back to a much more like, maybe the players are protecting a caravan, or the players are nomadic and they're playing more of a tribalistic, you're running a more of a tribalistic type of thing, that the players learn how to defeat the big bad monster. I mean, human beings are pretty fragile, to be honest with you, but our brains make up for it. And so, human beings have been whaling, fighting gorillas and lions and elephants and all. These are pretty dangerous animals one on one, but we've learned how to take them down. Maybe the player characters learn how to take down creatures that are much much higher level than they are, by using being patient, using lots of tactics, and using the environment to their benefit. Uh, Mike Marin says, on this topic, any thoughts on natural traps produced in wild places by animals? Webs are the typical book example, but there could be others, perhaps more complex or puzzle like than just pits. Um, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because uh, in classic Dungeons and Dragons, there seems to be a an artificial but dividing line between what a puzzle is, what a trap is, and what an obstacle is. And for me, um, all of those are much more gray. They're more blended together than people give them credit for. For example, in Dungeons and Dragons, you have usually a section, a book of traps, and 99% of the time, those traps are man-made. It is a pit trap that someone dug in the ground, or in a dungeon, and put some spikes in it. It is a falling ceiling trap, or whatever. But all of that actually happens in it happens naturally. People fall into holes all the time traveling out in the wilderness if they're not careful. Things fall on top of people's heads all the time in the wilderness if they're not careful. It's just a matter of reframing it, reskinning it, and understanding that the the animals living in and around their lair are always going to live in a place that's beneficial to them. It's why eagles don't live on the ground, right? They prefer to live up in trees because they've got wings. The fact that it's difficult for you to climb up there and it's a falling hazard for you is a side effect of them going like, "Yeah, human being, I see you trying to climb up in the tree. I'll wait till you get here and I'm gonna just fly away." you know, um, it's why alligators attack things in swamps, because they can hide and grab things by the ankle and snatch them down in the water and do the classic alligator or crocodile roll, right? It is their lair, so they absolutely would. And webs and entangling vines and falling in the pits and slipping and sliding in muddy regions. Uh, animals that take cover because they know that weather events are happening, animals that are nocturnal because they know other creatures can't see in the dark. All those kind of things are in their. I mean, it's a natural part of their habitat. So yeah, M squared. I absolutely agree with you. Now, another part of making a puzzle, there are many puzzle books that have where you can, you can type in puzzles and it gives you a puzzle and a specific answer. I would say it's less than creating puzzles and more creating problems. So create problems but not solutions, so that, because a lot of puzzles that have a singular answer, if you introduce them to the players, there's a good chance the players are either A, going to guess the answer and you're going to feel disappointed because they guessed it too quickly, or they're never going to guess the answer because you've only have one answer and the players feel frustrated. So you don't want to feel frustrated as the game master, and you don't want the players feeling frustrated. Instead, create problems and let them come up with answers. So if they have to get a 2-ton Tarask egg across a rickety old rope bridge, that's the problem. You either have to go around and it's going to take you 5 more days, or you're going to have to figure out how to get a 2-ton egg across a bridge that can barely hold 500 pounds, right? Um, Figure it out. You figure it out. I don't know. And if they come up with it, hey, can we put it on my floating disc spell, and two other players have their own floating disc spells, and we put them together, and then we put it. I don't. I'm just pulling answers out of my ass, which I don't think would work anyway. But you get the point, right? So I think when it comes to natural natural habitats, I also think the rules, especially in fifth edition, there aren't very many rules, which is why I started writing the cinematic environs books. Is that, like, when you start talking about earthquakes, mudslides, forest fires, sandstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, hailstorms, uh, thunderstorms, weather events, high winds, derechos that come through. That we get derechos here in Ohio because we're kind of at the tail end of. I mean, we still get tornado warnings as well, but we get hit more with derechos, which are like these high wind scythes that sweep through. But there's so many things. Thick fog. There's so many things that the exploration pillar doesn't describe. And I think when you start narrowing it down, especially when it comes to combat and having high winds during a combat, or thick fog during a combat, or the chances of falling debris or sliding down a muddy hill or whatever during combat, I think is underserved in role playing games, and which is why I'm a proponent of it. Anyway, Mike Marin says perhaps magical monster lays magic web traps for meat-like creatures, but it could be disabled with steel or wood. A perfectly logical puzzle to exist in a natural setting. Exactly. Well, and listen, there's some natural things that happen anyway, like um, animals being afraid of fire. That's not a there's no game mechanic for that, but it makes perfect sense if you take a stick and stick it in the fire and you try to keep the wolves from coming at you. You wave around a burning stick. Burning away webs is another thing. Um, uh, Things trapped in webs. Since you brought up webs, things can be trapped in webs that might help and or hinder the player characters. And also, it must be said, to make your world seem like it's alive, to use immediate res in the middle of things for your player characters. I don't mean starting the story in the middle, kind of like how all the James Bond movies start, where James Bond is kind of like at the tail end of a previous mission before the actual mission starts. But what I mean by it is like have things happening in the world that would happen normally if the player characters weren't there. So animals could already be eating on a carcass, or giant spiders have already captured prey in their web, or something else got captured in their webs before the PCs got there. Animals should be starving or wounded or tired or sleeping, or diseased, or infected with, like, I don't know, dire rabies or something like that. Because I always think of creatures, dire creatures, having something's wrong with them to make them bestial that cannot be solved, right? That a dire wolf is like a rabid wolf. A What are some other dire creatures? Doesn't matter. But yeah, um, the idea it would be that there are natural things happening happening out in the world, and you don't have to explain why it is. It just is what it is, um and it, again, learning that could actually save the PC's lives. So for example, maybe the PCs think they're hunting after one. I'm stealing this from Nerdarchy. So maybe the PCs are hunting after a land shark, a boulet, and then they come across a dry gorge or something, and there's like 30 of them in there. And the PCs are like, holy shit, we're like surrounded by 30 boulets. There's no way we can fight them. But if they stay still, it's only because maybe there's a mating ritual, or they're establishing dominance, or this is a place where boulets lay their eggs, or nurse their young, or take shelter because there's a sandstorm that's coming through, and this dry gorge or something is a safe place for them to go, or any number of things, right? So, um, also, a lot of attention isn't really given to the trip back home, and I understand why. Like, especially in media, it can be a little bit dis not as exciting to see characters travel from A to B and then go backwards from B to A. Although I gotta admit, that did happen in the latest Mad Max Fury Road movie, where we get to see the our protagonists go from A to B. They literally go in a line away from where they need to go, and then on our way back, because we're familiar with what the landscape is on our way back, it doesn't need to be explained to us. But yeah, oh, you guys talking about a giant ant lion. Remember a giant ant lion? Mm-mm-mm. But kind of cool. So the not only traveling to a place could be interesting, it would be kind of cool if the player characters get to where they need to go. They get the small whatever egg, baby Pegasus, doesn't matter, right? Unhatched egg of a owl bear that hatches on its way back home or something, right? The little griffin egg or whatever. So, but on their way back, they could use all the information that they learned on their way to then use that against any adversaries that are there to um, undo what the player characters have done. Like, for example, if the player characters are uh, were hired to the Baron, the dowry, go get the Pegasus, bring it back because my daughter's getting married. And then the PCs on their way back, there's another group that's going, well, I want the status symbol. I'm just going to wait for the adventuring party to get it, and then I'm just going to steal it from them, and we murder them, and then we become the heroes. Of course, they become the bad guys and stuff, right? And that could be a story unto itself, where the PCs are like, keep the owlbear quiet while we sneak around and you use the environment against them, which is another thing that is often underutilized in games, is that not only should the environment be used, it kind of should be abused. So if kobolds can start an avalanche, why can't the player characters? If there's a pit trap that the PCs maneuver around, why can't they use that to lure the zombies to fall into that exact same pit trap? If there's a muddy hill and the PCs end up sliding down a muddy hill, why can't they, kick the goblinoids in the chest and make them fall down the muddy hill? So there's a lot of that too. Don't know what that means. The RUSs. Sorry, Wayne. my brain isn't there yet. That always happens when you go live. I'm like, I don't get that, because my associations are all over the place. Um, Lastly, I will say, when it comes to the going out in the wilderness to confront the wild bestial thing to dominate it and bring it back to society. It's also possible that society might have to go to where it is. There could be a um, downfall of civil discourse in society, and maybe they have to go out into the wild, which oftentimes is why it is that we have a symbiotic relationship with wild animals in the first place, is that people that were nomadic or people that have to leave where they are, it's like, hey, we have to learn how to live. So the best way to learn how to live in the wild is to know how that thing lives in the wild and learn from it. Oh, rodents of unusual size. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or what's the other one? Adolescent. Uh, man, adolescent something. Oh, I can't remember. I know you guys know the name of it. Adolescent radioactive. Oh, and what was the other ones? Um, monster movie. That had a an acronym. Um, Oh, my brain's not going there. Sorry, 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 sorry. Yeah, 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 yeah. You're so right. Yeah, yeah. I lost two charisma, three intelligence on that on that one. I sure did. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Princess Bride. Wow, wow, and it all flooded back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, 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 yes. I agree with you. Mike says the griffin egg, baby griffin, writes itself. Yep, it hatches, bonds with PC. Its cries draw hippogriff attacks. It's trying to fly, gets stuck in giant spider web, etc., etc. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's uh uh. Even though this is not what it's meant to be, it's kind of like a comedy of errors. If you've ever heard that term, comedy of errors, where you're and this happens in a lot of comedy movies, usually slapstick comedy, where the characters often travel from one place to another, where a simple event is supposed to take place. I'm looking at you, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and complications keep happening to our group of individuals. I'm looking at you, Hangover movies, where it sounds like a simple prospect, but every time they try to make a move to get from A to B, something new keeps happening. And like Mike says about the, oh, great, you've got the griffin egg or the baby griffin, and it starts to make noise, and then it draws enemies, and then it tries to run, and it flies away, it gets stuck in a spider web, and then you get it out of the spider, but then the giant spider comes along, and then and so on and so forth, right? And while that does seem to be a little bit, it can seem a bit frantic sometimes, especially if it's nothing more than a stacked number of random encounters one after another. Um, it is kind of what Dungeons and Dragons and adventuring is about, right? Because if you could get something done very easily, that's usually a one shot, uh, or not easily, but like get it done soonish. Yeah, Mike. But comedy of errors. Adventuring is very OSR. It is location based situations rather than a narrative based, meaning like it's nothing planned, but the fact that you got there, listen, you're going to have problems with um, opposing factions. You're going to have problems with traps. You're going to have problems with navigating around obstacles. You're going to be creating your own obstacles because you're making a lot of noise. You monsters can sense who you are and what you're doing and all. And so yeah, yep, yep. Is it something uh hamsters? It's adolescent radioactive something. I can't remember what it was. Cannibalistic chuds, cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller. Yeah, there it is. Yep, yep, yep. There it is. Thank you there, Atlantean Mariner. Um, so, um, player characters needing to be able to symbiotically survive or blend with these monstrous creatures might also be an end unto itself. Maybe the player characters are um, scouts. They're like forward observers for a nomadic group, or maybe something happened. Let's go back to House of the Dragon, where in the past Volantis was destroyed by 14 volcanoes that erupted all at the same time. Uh, hint, hint, hint. Maybe they were using blood magics and terrible, evil magics that caused their own downfall. But whatever the case might be, Volantis destroyed 14 volcanoes. At least that's what they claim. Um, this minor house leaves called the Targaryens. They come over to Westeros and they have to learn how to live. Player characters might be involved in the same thing. Hey, first level characters, you are the forward observers for a full community of people that have to survive in this new land. Maybe they came from, maybe it's the giant diaspora, and humanity had to leave from one place and survive in another place. And the player characters are not just looking out for themselves, but for a larger community. And there's dangerous monsters out there. What are we going to do? Are we going to try to eradicate them, which is kind of humanity's default, or are we going to try to learn from them or bond with them? Um, and that would be a pretty good storyline, I think, unto itself, especially if they have to travel across the accursed desert. Take a drink. Um, to learn how to ride on the backs of giant scorpions, or avoid the sidewinder snakes or something, or design harnesses to ride on the back of giant cobras, or whatever the case may be. Yep. Um, Mike says, I also see a time skip. Yep, for the Griffin adventure, and that's why you're outlaws now. Yeah, the Griffin refuses to bond with royalty, instead sticking with the PCs. King overreacts as they do. Yep, and PC is arrested. Griffin kills guards. Now it's an escape. Which, listen, I yeah. Can you imagine? Um, like it the so the players are like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we had a griffin on our side? We could bond with it, we could ride on its back, and it would be cool. But the opposite of it might be like, what if the griffin is like a super fan of the PCs, and the PCs are like, go home, go to the mountain, you don't have to stick with us, and the griffin is just like, eh, and it keeps bringing back like food for them, like horses and goats and chickens and stuff. And the PCs are like, don't stop doing that. And the Griffin's just like, I don't understand. I thought you wanted to eat. And they're just like, oh, everywhere we go, the Griffin keeps causing uh causing a comedy of errors, as the people are like coming with their pitchforks, pissed off at the uh at the PCs and stuff. Yeah, Accursed Desert, next on Discovery Plus. Awesome. Yep, yep, yep. You know, um, I actually wasn't the person who made up the Accursed Desert. I actually played in a game with that, but I was just like, well, because we were trying to come up with a name, and I was like, it's probably just an Accursed Desert, and because anyway, it's the improper syllable on the incorrect improper emphasis on the incorrect syllable. Mm. Mike says, honestly, just inject cat or dog behavior. You know what? Um, Not a bad way to default to something, especially especially for a big giant monster, right? Having a giant wyvern want to curl up uh around the encampment while the PC's trying to sleep, and the thing feels like wants to get warm, and keeps trying to like cuddle up closer and closer to the PC and surround them, would be pretty hilarious though, because the PC's like, what the little poisonous tail just dripping poison on the next to the PC's ear unconsciously and stuff. Yeah, like don't move. Thought it was radioactive hamsters, something adolescent some radioactive hamsters. I can't remember the name of it. Damn it, I gotta look it up. Adolescent, uh, adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters. That's it. It's adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters. Wikipedia. That it was bothering me so much. There it is. Mm, 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 mm. You're funny. TA says, I was going to say, my cat is very much more intelligent than most people give cats as well as very emotional. Yeah. If I'm pissed off about something, she comes and tries to comfort me, even if she is far away outside. And she also responds to tapping with my fingertips on things when I need her to come home. Yep. Cats are more, there's always the fight between what people think are, cat people versus dog people and whatnot. But yeah, my two cats are very Sophie and Boots are pretty emotional, although I did have a cat named Tiger who whenever anyone in the house was starting to get sick, she would just curl up around their neck and everything, and within a day or two the flu. It was just a normal thing where she would find a person in the household and she would attach herself to them, and that person, you just knew, we're going to get the flu. And she was stick in the room. If you were sick, she would stick right by your side. Yeah. Yeah. I've semi trained my cats. So I do like a two finger motion because cats don't really know what pointing is. So I've taught them with like two fingers, like I'll tap a location or take my fingers and point towards something, and they know to pay attention to where my attention is. Um, yeah, Mike says cats can be trained like dogs. They just don't tend not to care as much. Yeah, the idea of hurting cats is a real thing. You can't really hurt them. They choose on their own. They may want to do the same thing as dogs. They just don't. Uh, Dogs are just far more uh, clan like. They are very tribalistic. They're very social. They're like, we want to be in a group. Let's all get in a big group and do the thing. You know what I mean? Cats are very independent predators. So dogs aren't. Tom says, I often get from others when they see her meow back to my meow call, even turning her head to look at me and coming when I use that tapping if I have a cat or a dog. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do the same thing. My cats and I, we talk back and forth. Nexus, Black Cat would turn in the TV when bored, answer the phone if it rang too long, etc. I had him at verbal commands and hand signals. Yep. Yeah. If you're just patient with them. Because a lot of times cats act like they don't care, but they're actually paying attention. Because that's the hard part about training cats is with dogs, you get an instant response. Cats, you don't get an instant response. But that's awesome. But monster wise, if we, since we can stay on point, even though this is the end, um, it is very much like it would, with creatures, fantasy creatures that can weigh hundreds of pounds to many tons, it would be pretty funny to give them like cat and dog behaviors because they would just like you're I don't know, the PCs are having dinner in the king's chamber because as the king would want to congratulate them on bringing the griffin back, back to the wedding or something for the next day, and then all of a sudden Mama Griffin shows up and is just like, "Hell's no." Mm-mm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, you guys are talking about, yep, where that cats grow up while dogs are perpetual wolf puppies, so they want to bond far more than cats do. So cats take longer to bond or require more of your part to win them. Yep. Wayne's like, cats poo in the house. Enough said. Oh, they only poo in the house because we keep them in there, right? I mean, if you kept dogs in the house, they'd have to do it somewhere as well. You're so silly. Once you do, though, they will sleep outside your door for weeks, waiting for you to return and refuse to hang out with people who clearly do not like you. Yep, yep, yep. Now, I want to show you guys something. I'll show which one do I want to show you? I'll show you the City of Light. Um, so lastly, a little quite a whiles ago, quite a while ago, I was we were having this discussion on World Building Wednesday about creating. Come on, get out of here. About creating a city modified or what if the light spell was taken to its extreme, and I decided to do something about that. So I created a little document here. It's not the best layout in the world, but um uh uh, this came from yesterday. We're talking about descriptions, and I was like, man, I need to take this information and kind of upload it and put it somewhere. So I made some kind of document here, and it's just kind of cool where um the city name is this is Afrikaans for City of Light. And up here, I put in darkness in fantasy realms has always been the bane of humanity, the birth of fears both real and imagined. In the City of Light, there is no darkness, none. The people live in eternal sunshine, illumination, and bright light. Has the last of the shadows, has the last of the shadows hidden within the citizenry, excuse me, has the last of the shadows hidden within the citizenry or fled to the borders of the city state? What happens when night never falls? Can light become a place of fear? Shadow, can light become a place of fear? Shadow, a place of refuge? And then I did the who, what, where, when, how, and why kind of thing, and decided to throw that in here and give a little layout through a couple of through a couple of little icon thing, little doodads over here in the corner. I might it didn't take me very long. You could see how it's all callywhopped and whatnot, and I don't know about. I was going to change it, make it bigger or smaller, but I kind of want to show it to you guys anyway. Um, so anyway, we're getting to the end here. Mm-mm-mm. Mike says, "Well, let's think about that griffin. It's part lion, part eagle. Yep. Okay, so stealing from both. It's both independent and given to group behavior. So it'll want to lead a group it's in. Yeah. Part eagle, part lion, part eagle. Yep. She's also standoffish. What if it is feminine and assists you be the lead and take decisions? Oh, you're so wrong. Mm-mm-mm. It, basically, imagine a cat level woman with mentality where you're expected to be the man rather than behave as female cats simply do when the actual bread. Oh, you're so wrong. Mm-mm. I can see Drow. How can you live like this? In Midsommar, it's we're how are you putting these timestamps in there? Anyway, Timothy says Midsummer is almost entirely in daylight. Light can be oppressive. Light can very much be. Later this year in June, I'm going on a cruise and it's going to be what 18 hours of daylight. I think it is in Alaska in June. The parts I'm going to. Mm-mm-mm. The biggest part here is like let me see if I could zero in on it. It's a little I guess I could rank it way up there. Um is this part right here where it's like, what do you see? You see blinded victims of the governance, eyes blazing with light, epidemics of insomnia, enforcers of light in search of darkness, orbs of light. I want to fit in the monsters that we created, the new names for them. I'll probably stick them down below, but yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Unreasonable fearness, especially of the dark, living light as pets or even spirits of the dead. The blind are honored, are and jeez, really? Come on. And honored peoples. I'll probably put the names in. somewhere in here. I didn't put those weasels in. I'm probably going to move these around. I made this yesterday. I don't know, half an hour, something like that. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, wait. Eh, Yeah, guys. So anyway, uh, just wanted to share something out there that I've been working on. I'm trying to make a to try to come to a confluence of ease of production for maximum benefit. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a person of a certain age, which means in the United States, so that means I have to go cruising because that's the thing that you do. Love boat. Da, 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 da. Yeah, took a huge break from going cruising. Um, Caribbean is always the best spot to go, but plan on trying to do other cruising. I've been to Baja, Mexico, and cruising. Now I'm going to Alaska. I want to do a Great Lakes cruise, cruising up around Canada and back through the Great Lakes and stuff. It's going to be that would be uh, pretty damn expensive, but it'll happen. It'll happen one of these days. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Got to get out of here. Starting to fade out a little bit. Got to get some get pour some of this almond milk and some coffee and whatnot. Um, Tia says it definitely opens the possibility to confuse the crap out of the players if they try and guess how the wild animals and monsters are going to react when you dive into even gender expectations. Yeah, from species level to another. Yep. And also, listen, we also brought up the idea that when human beings bond with these like strange bestial arcane monsters, that personality wise, maybe it's not so much us bonding with them, influencing them, but maybe it's more of them influencing us, right? Like the personalities start to blend together a little bit, or maybe the bonding process is that our personality or that person's personality most aligns with the animal's personality, you know? So yeah. You got it there. Yeah. Listen, it'll only take me about an hour and a half to get to at least one of the lakes. I think Lake Erie. But yeah. Great Lakes, biggest I think they're the biggest lakes in the world. Something. Yep, pour a little more humanity into them so they can just choose to not be as expected. Yes, I love that. Maybe a mishmash of both affecting each other. Yeah, hell's yeah. Hell yeah. Like now the question would be which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like did I become an asshole because I bonded with this massive creature? Or was I always an asshole and the creature just solidified the assholeness, right? Right? Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, absolutely, TA. Yep. That is an idea of spirit animals where you have a dominant trait that makes you more cat or dog like than the other. So someone else, so the animals of that type sense it and bond easier. Yep. Yep. That goes with the idea that humans are a conglomeration of all animals. Hadn't thought about that idea, but I mean I could see the rationale for it, right? Like a little bit of everything, a little sprinkling of everything, and maybe some people have something that makes them stand out a little bit more to than another. Especially going back to that king that wanted to get that griffin for their daughter for the wedding, and it bonds with one of the PCs. Maybe there's a reason why it bonded with the PC. It'd be kind of cool. Mm-mm-mm. Maybe the PC then learns how to ride the griffin, which in turn is the griffin some would say that did we bond with wolves to make dogs, or did we domesticate them, or did they domesticate us to help them out? Right. Yep, I'm with you there, Ta. So yeah, when you it's the reason why It's the idea of how people start to look like their animals. Yeah, it's like maybe there's a reason why. Maybe you were always like that, and you guys just came together, or learned from each other. It could be subconscious as well. But anyway, guys, I got to get out of this place. Don't know if I'll ever get back. So, guys, have a great one. I will see you tomorrow on Future Friday. Not exactly what we're going to talk about for Future Friday, but it'll be something related to what we're talking about now, especially when it comes to alien races and alien creatures and things. So, guys, have a great one. I've got to get out of here. I got to get some coffee in me. You guys have a great day. I'll see you later. Peace.